Hello guys, I know this video is a little late, but I finally decided on my top 10 films of 2021. There were a lot of great surprises this year, even though it still felt like the year was a little sparse in terms of films, in my opinion. But without further ado, let's get right into my favorite films of the year, starting with honorable mentions. First, we have Pig. Nicolas Cage delivered probably my favorite performance by him this year with the film Pig. It's a somber, well-written, well-directed film exploring grief in the restaurateur underworld, and it was a blast. This was a hard one to take off of my top 10. David Lowery delivered a beautiful, sensual, and utterly epic take on the Arthurian legend of the Green Knight. From its opening moments, I was hooked by what seemed to me like the best medieval fantasy film that I think I've ever seen. Wes Anderson is a man that needs no introduction, and The French Dispatch was a really fun film. I love this beautiful and stylish love letter to journalism. It really made me feel happy to see Wes working at some of his best, even now, with all the movies he's made. He had a great ensemble cast, and this is honestly one of the most fun times I've had at a theater by far this year. Kenneth Branagh's Belfast was a strong story of resilience and political upheaval in the 1960s Ireland. It was black and white and it was heartfelt. It's honestly the best Kenneth Branagh film in probably over a decade, in my opinion. A film noir version of the classic Shakespeare play, starring Frances McDormand and Denzel Washington, and written and directed by Joel Cohen. I was all in from the start, and I'm happy to report that this was one of the best films of the year. I still cannot get over the ending that the film left off on. The high I felt was incredible, and that was also reflected in the audience literally applauding in the theater that I was watching this in. Absolutely incredible experience. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed that Licorice Pizza didn't end up just strictly in my top 10 of 2021 because I'm a huge PTA fan. But I did like the film a lot, however, and it was still one of my favorites of the year. It's just kind of sad for me that it didn't reach the heights of a film like The Master or Inherent Vice, in my opinion. I mean, what can I say, dude? Zack Snyder, zombies, a huge cast, a bleak ending, awesome music. It was all for me. I'm an unashamed fan of Zack Snyder, and I'm never going to apologize for that. And Army of the Dead, while not his best film, while not the most masterfully crafted film, is still a film that highlights just about everything I love about Zack Snyder films. All right, everybody, so those were my honorable mentions of my favorite movies of 2021. Now, let's get into my top 10 official favorite movies of 2021. At number 10, we have No Time to Die. I'm a big fan of the Daniel Craig James Bond films. I have been ever since he was James Bond back in Casino Royale. I was a kid. I always liked James Bond. You know, Pierce Brosnan was my first Bond. But Daniel Craig I really, really fell in love with. You know, I always loved his movies. Skyfall I remember being like a huge, awesome experience for me as a fan of James Bond. I just couldn't believe that the movie was that good. And yeah, No Time to Die was Daniel Craig's final movie. And honestly, I wasn't expecting much. I actually felt like the movie might not be that great when I was watching the trailers, but I had such a great time with this movie. I thought it was a great send-off for Daniel Craig. I loved all the characters they introduced and reintroduced. Standout sequences were like the Cuba sequence with Paloma and Felix. I love seeing that. The action was great. Karyoji Fukunaga, man, he's a great director. And him and Linus Sandgren really were able to make something that felt very visually fresh, but still steeped in the tradition of James Bond in that film. And with the IMAX sequences, it was great, although I do think that they were underutilized quite a bit. I feel like there were a lot more sequences in which the IMAX could have been put to good use. But honestly, I feel like this was a great final film. It was long, but it didn't really feel that long to me, honestly. I was enjoying every minute of it. And yeah, No Time to Die. Such a great movie. My number 10 spot. At number 9, we have James Gunn's Suicide Squad. I was a fan of DC Comics all throughout my childhood. The Suicide Squad was something I was familiar with. I was very, very anticipatory back in 2016 when the Suicide Squad came out. That was directed by David Ayer. And I know that disappointed a lot of people, and myself included over time have found myself a little disappointed by that film. However, with James Gunn's Suicide Squad, I feel like he nailed at least his type of movie. It wasn't like a dark, serious movie like I was hoping for with David Ayer's Suicide Squad, but his version of the Suicide Squad, James Gunn, I just really found incredibly delightful. I loved Idris Elba as Bloodsport. I loved seeing Margot Robbie back as Harley Quinn. I've always really liked her as Harley Quinn. I feel like she's a really good fit for that role. Joel Kinnaman back as Rick Flag, that was great. And I feel like one of the best things about this movie is that, James Gunn was able to, take the humor that we know him from Guardians of the Galaxy, but he was really able to turn it up to 11 because it was rated R, and it seems like he was allowed pretty much free reign when he was making this film. And I think that is something that you traditionally see a lot with these DC movies that Warner Brothers makes, is that when those directors are allowed free reign, right, is that you do get to see the films that they're making in the best light possible. And I think, if anything, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is a big lesson for Warner Brothers in terms of what they need to do going forward, which is really just let the creators create and let their voice speak for itself. But yeah, it was a great movie. It's so fun. I love just about everything about it. I don't think I've had that much fun in a movie in quite a while when I saw it, honestly. It was a big surprise for the year. At number 8, we have the Anthony Bourdain documentary, Roadrunner. Back when Anthony Bourdain had passed away, I was pretty affected by it. Not like in a very huge sense, but Anthony Bourdain was a very important person for me in my own personal life in terms of inspiration and stuff like that. And I still to this day rewatch episodes of Parts Unknown. It's like one of my favorite shows of all time. I love that. I could throw it on and just like let it play and watch it like through all the seasons. It's such a great show. And Anthony is so poetic and smart, and I think like it was obviously a long time coming for a documentary like this to happen, because he has had such a storied career and such a prolific career, not only as a chef but as an author and as a TV personality and host of the several shows that he had. And it was great to see a documentary directed by Morgan Neville, who made my favorite documentary that came out a couple of years ago, the Mr. Rogers documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor, which I thought was brilliant. It was great to see him do something about Anthony, and it really, really hit me in the feels. I had a blast watching it, learning things about him that I didn't know, hearing from people who had such profound friendships and experiences with him, hearing from the crew. Honestly, this is a must-watch documentary for any fan of Anthony Bourdain, and honestly, I remember when it finished, I just had to sort of sit in the theater and let the credits roll for a little bit. I actually just couldn't believe, right, the emotions that had washed over me during the film. It's such a powerful documentary, and I definitely recommend it. Next on the list, we have Paul Schrader's The Card Counter. Now, this is a movie that bounced on and off of this list quite a few times, if I'm being honest. I'm a big fan of Paul Schrader and his work. Ever since I saw Taxi Driver, I fell in love with his writing. Raging Bull, Last Temptation of Christ, First Reformed, which is my favorite movie of all time, Mishima, Life in 4 Chapters, which I'm sure will come up again on this channel several times. If you know me, you know I am a huge Paul Schrader fan, and it was so exciting to get to see another Paul Schrader movie and to actually get to see one in theaters, because I didn't get to see First Reformed in theaters. I had to watch that one at home. So it was nice to finally get that experience, and honestly, I was blown away. Oscar Isaac in this movie was just a force to be reckoned with, and I love the story, and I love his bringing in of things like about Abu Ghraib, and the story that he brings up is dark and horrible, and it's a movie ultimately about redemption and what constitutes somebody's redemption, their own forgiveness of the sins that they've committed, right? What happens when society says you've paid your debt, but you don't feel in your conscience that you have? And Paul Schrader's the best at writing characters like that. And that's not to say that this movie was perfect, because in no way was it. I have some issues with the casting in the film. I have issues with the lack of use of Willem Dafoe in this movie. I feel like the final sequence of the film, where you do get to see Oscar Isaac and Willem Dafoe meet, I feel like that should have been extended quite a bit. But it is a Paul Schrader movie. I did have a great time watching it. I own it on Blu-ray, and I still watch parts of it. I hope one day we get a director's commentary or something for it. I don't know, but I did really like this movie, and I saw it in the theaters 3 times, and there were sequences in the movie that absolutely blew me away. So, yeah, the card counter. Next on the list, we have Guillermo del Toro's Nightmare Alley. This is a weird one for me, because I'm not the biggest Guillermo del Toro fan, in the slightest. I liked the Hellboy movies a little bit. I thought The Shape of Water was really good. I actually did enjoy that movie quite a bit, and I wasn't super upset about it winning Best Picture, although I don't necessarily think it's what I would have chosen for Best Picture that year. But Nightmare Alley was a big surprise, because I was expecting a monster movie, a supernatural movie from Guillermo del Toro. And, I was excited because it's like Bradley Cooper and Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara and Toni Collette and like this, and Willem Dafoe and this big cast. And the movie thoroughly subverted my expectations. It wasn't a monster movie. It wasn't a supernatural movie. But it was a neo-noir retelling of a previously made story that, honestly, I felt myself so captivated in. Even though it was a long movie, too. It was a long movie, but I was in it to win it. And I was like, I will stick through to the end. And that movie does thoroughly reward its viewers for sticking through to the end of the film. And I just remember the feeling I had when I got to the end of the movie, where I just was like, wow, they really did that. Honestly, it's kind of crazy just to see Guillermo del Toro on this list. But Nightmare Alley was one of my favorite movies of the whole year, and I think everybody should see it. It is a masterclass in filmmaking. All right, next up we have Pablo Larraín's Spencer. I was a big fan of Pablo Larraín's last film, Jackie, when that came out in theaters. I honestly my mind was blown, and I thoroughly enjoyed that film. So the thought of Pablo Larraín doing yet another biopic about another female character who's very important to society, I was in. I was like, okay, I'm ready to see this. And Spencer was honestly better than I could have imagined. I really, it's weird to think that, because I already had high hopes for this movie, and somehow it met those hopes. Kristen Stewart, amazing actress. And here's the thing, when the movie started, I wasn't sure. When the movie started, I really was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stick through this acting, this accent, her mannerisms. There was something off about the whole thing. But eventually you realize there's something off about the entire movie, in a purposeful way. There's something just weird about everything that's going on. And I think the movie does a good job at sort of pointing out the ridiculousness and the suffocatory nature of being royal. And you can see how that got to Princess Diana, and how that sort of preyed on many of the things that she was struggling with, body image, mental illness, things like that. And, you really get like a really full and tragic picture over the course of these 3 days during Christmas, where you get to see what the toll that takes on her, and how the straining of the relationship with the family and all of that stuff. And, I honestly couldn't have asked for a better movie about something like this. I think Pablo Larraín really nailed it on every level. The score is incredible. There are moments where I was like, my jaw was dropping, because I just couldn't believe what he was doing musically in the film, in terms of meshing music and images. Kristen Stewart just really nailed it the whole time. I feel like she put her all into this role, and Who knows if she'll get nominated for an Oscar? It doesn't seem like the odds are in her favor, even though I think maybe she gave the best performance of the entire year. I'm not sure. But Spencer was a phenomenal movie. Beautiful. Everyone should go see it if you haven't already. Next on the list, we have Ridley Scott's The Last Duel. I'm a fan of Ridley Scott, and I am a bigger fan of Ridley Scott than probably most people are. I know that there's a lot of detractors and naysayers about Ridley Scott, and not to say that Ridley Scott has, in the most recent years, made some of the greatest movies ever, although I did thoroughly enjoy his 2 Alien prequels. I really enjoyed those movies. I love The Martian. But getting to see Ridley Scott go back to a medieval setting, getting to see him tell a historical story again, and the trailer for The Last Duel honestly captivated me so much. So when I went into this movie, I had kind of high hopes, and this tale of, a trial about a rape, and by way of the Rashomon storytelling of seeing everybody's different perspectives on how the events played out, I thought was brilliant. And it is a beautiful movie. It's an intense movie as well, and it is not for the faint of heart. And I understand to an extent why certain people were very uncomfortable with the film. And maybe I don't necessarily agree with the politics of their criticism or the social implications of the criticisms that they made about the film and how they, saw some of the things in the film. Which is, that's my right, that's their right. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion on the film. But I thoroughly enjoyed watching this movie. I actually just watched it again not too long ago, and I really couldn't believe that it held up to my memory of it, even just months apart from watching it the first time. I love Matt Damon's performance. I love Adam Driver's performance. Jodie Comer, honestly, another one of the best performances of the whole year from her. She's absolutely amazing, and you can see like the doughy-eyed. You can see her transition from like this doughy-eyed girl to somebody who is literally now at a place where her life is at stake, and her life is at stake due to the pridefulness of her husband. And honestly, it's in a great movie. And yeah, I don't know. I really couldn't get enough of it, and I was so happy when I saw it, and I love the ending battle scene, which is something that honestly, I remember when I watched it, and I was like, this is troubling. This is troubling just how insane what's going on is, and an implication that's made within that battle scene itself, where you really get to understand like how a certain character really felt those events played out. And honestly, it's a tough movie, but it's a brave movie, and it's a movie that I think it'd be nice if movies like that made more money, because we would get to see more movies like this. But yeah, The Last Duel, incredible film. All right, we're at the top 3, and at the number 3 spot is Come On, Come On. I'm a fan of Mike Mills. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed 20th Century Women back when that came out. I saw that in the theaters. And when Come On, Come On was announced and we got to see that trailer, I was thoroughly excited. And this movie did not disappoint me in the slightest. I was actually surprised at how much I really, really enjoyed this. I mean, I loved Joaquin Phoenix. Oh my gosh, she's so brilliant. And him and Gabby Hoffman in this movie were everything I could have wanted, I think, out of a brother and sister duo in the film. And, one of the things that Mike Mills does, and I think he really does it the best in this movie versus every movie he's done prior, is this feeling of naturalism. You really feel like this is very real, like these are real people. And I kind of forget, like, oh, this is Joaquin Phoenix, that's Gabby Hoffman, that kid's an actor, you know what I mean? Scoot McNairy's in this movie, right? And I really, really thoroughly enjoyed, like, how he was able to bring me into that world and make me feel real, and even touch on things that, like, touch my own heart from certain experiences that I had. And it's a beautiful movie. The black and white is great. The sound design is great. I love his style, right, with the music and citing sources on screen and getting to hear people's monologues over images, and I think that plays really well, and you get to do it a lot more in a movie like Come On, Come On, because the main character is a radio journalist. So there's a lot of things working at play in the film that sort of help, make the best parts of a Mike Mills movie come to life, the most stylish part of a Mike Mills movie come to life, and it was great. It was a great movie. Next, at the number 2 spot, we have Denis Villeneuve's Dune. Dune is a movie that I was beyond excited for the second I saw that interview where Denis Villeneuve announced that his next movie is going to be Dune, and he's excited to do it. And when they asked him what he wanted to do after Blade Runner, he was like, Dune. And I loved Blade Runner 2049. So getting to see Denis Villeneuve do another sci-fi world with his style and aesthetic was right up my alley, and I couldn't wait to see it. And I was not disappointed one bit with Dune. Honestly, I don't know how this man does it. I really don't. Denis Villeneuve pulls off things in this film, and it's only the first half of the film, right? It's only Dune Part 1. But the things he pulls off in this movie honestly blow my mind sometimes, right? Getting to tell a story that huge, right? Getting to there's so many facets and there's so many different things that are going on. It's like trying to squeeze Game of Thrones into 2.5 hours, right? And he's able to do it really well. And that movie's script is great. It feels very reminiscent not only of classic sci-fi movies, but of this new twist that Denis Villeneuve has been putting on sci-fi since he started getting into that game with films like Enemy and Arrival and Blade Runner 2049. Dune carries that over, and yes, while it does feel a little bit more mainstream than movies like Arrival or movies like Blade Runner 2049, he still is able to make something incredible out of it, and there's such beautiful images on screen. I really loved seeing, just this movie was a huge feast for the eyes and the ears, and seeing it in IMAX really helped that. I actually just bought this movie on Blu-ray not too long ago because I know I'm gonna need to see it again and catch more things and experience some of those those moments that really made this movie incredible. And I cannot wait for Dune Part 2. I really cannot wait to see that movie. This is honestly a movie that I was anticipating as maybe my most anticipated movie of the whole year, and they nailed it. They did it. They nailed it. And I can't wait to see where it goes from here on out. And now, my favorite film of the year. This is a movie that I have been wanting to watch for years. It is a movie I've been wanting to watch since 2017. It's a movie that that has a legendary status amongst those people who have been following the story that has been going on over the course of this movie and following what's been going on. And that is Zack Snyder's Justice League. There's a lot more big movies on this list than I really thought there were going to be. But when I saw Zack Snyder's Justice League back in March when it came out, I knew right then and there that it was going to be one of my favorite movies of the entire year and that it was going to end up on my top 10. Zack Snyder, as I said, he's a director I love. I thoroughly enjoy a lot of his movies, and I know he's controversial. There's a lot of things that people don't like about Zack Snyder. But he's a filmmaker that's always captivated me. Man of Steel, 300, Batman vs. Superman, the 3-hour cut that he did of that film was phenomenal. I'm Watchmen. Oh my gosh, I just rewatched Watchmen the other day. Still love that movie. He's a filmmaker that has not really disappointed me in any sort of big way, and he plays on a lot of stylistic things that get me going in a movie, and he tells these stories that I've always wanted to see told. And getting to see his version of Justice League was not only just a huge thing for people who followed him, but you could tell he put a lot of effort into this, and this movie, which is gargantuan in length, 4 hours long, yet still incredible, and it feels like that was the shortest 4 hours of my entire life, if I'm being honest. I mean, I watched Edward Yang's Brighter Summer Day, which is a phenomenal movie, but Zack Snyder's Justice League moves so much faster than that movie, and I probably enjoyed it a lot more, if I'm being honest. I loved getting to see, I love getting to see his version of Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and all these characters, especially Cyborg, who was totally slighted in the Joss Whedon cut of the movie and all the reshoots and all they did. I'm glad to see all that go away. I'm glad to see it in its big, huge IMAX aspect ratio fully. That's something that I, as a person who takes in film, I always the IMAX, seeing the whole thing, I don't care if there's black bars on the side of the screen, if I get to see the whole image, that makes it worth it to me to see something like that. The special effects are seamless. The story, while yes, is very similar to the story that we saw in 2017, there's no crazy huge story revisions that change the direction of the story, save for the ending of the film, which has a very, very drastically different ending, to an extent, than the 2017 cut. I watched a movie that honestly made me happy and proud to have stuck through it, and to get to see Zack Snyder's vision vindicated, and make the movie that I ultimately hoped I was going to be able to see back in 2017, to be able to actually see that now, and to see what I had hoped and dreamed Justice League would be actually made that movie all worth it. And who knows if they're going to do anything. They're saying that they're not going to do anything more with this universe. A lot of people, seems like this Flash movie is going to rewrite the whole DC canon going forward, which is sad, but hey, you know what? I got at least 3 movies from Zack Snyder in the DC universe that, told a pretty cohesive story, and brought some of my favorite moments in comic book movies ever. And I'm not necessarily the biggest person into comic book movies nowadays. I barely even want to go see the Marvel movies. I've missed like 2 or 3 Marvel movies now since post Endgame, and it's hard to even see it as a loss. And DC has all the characters that I really, really love in sort of that world. So it was just nice to see somebody who loves those characters as much as me and as much as a lot of people take risks on those characters, which I know is very controversial. But the risks he took, I feel like they paid off. The risks he took telling a story like that, I feel like paid off. And we may never see more of the Snyderverse, but I am happy that we finally got to see this film. And it's my favorite movie of the whole year. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching my top 10 films of the entire year. I'm going to make a quick announcement, which is that we officially have a podcast. EDTALKSFILM has a podcast. I will link it below. It's available on Spotify and Anchor right now. I'm going to try and get it on more platforms as time goes on, but it's on those 2 platforms. There is a 6-minute introductory episode, and there is also a 50-minute full episode, which is the first official episode, where I talk about the movies that sort of inspired me and set me on the path that I am now. So please enjoy it. Please go listen to it. Subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Like and comment. Tell me what your top 10 favorite movies of the year were. I would really, really love to hear them. And yeah, thank you so much. And I'll see you guys later. Peace out.